What's up, everybody? It's November 25th. I cannot believe that the year is going by so crazy fast. It's already November. Although I am getting excited because in like 4 weeks I am leaving to head down south for the winter. So I'm going to Arizona and then to Costa Rica. Arizona, I go with my family to see my parents at Christmas. They spend their winters in the South, and so I always spend some time with them. And then I'm heading down to Costa Rica for 3 months. Yeah, so I last year I did Mexico for a month and Costa Rica for two. This year I'm going to do Costa Rica for 3 full months, and I have a development project. Actually, I have two development projects down there, so I'm excited. To kind of like see what's going on and be a part of them and actually be local on the ground. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I hope everyone's having a great Friday. You jealous, Lori? Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Like, I kind of set this up a few years back. I really didn't want to spend winters in Canada, and so this is kind of what we talk about a lot. It's like this life by design. So a lot of us can probably figure out something like this if they're interested in traveling and doing different kinds of things. You can definitely make it part of your lifestyle. You have to probably reorganize a few things and figure a few things out, but it's definitely possible. So if anybody's in Costa Rica this year planning to go down for whatever reason, let me know. I'd love to connect. It's not that big of a country. Same with Arizona. If you're there around the Christmas time, let me know and maybe we can connect for a coffee or something like that. But yeah, great to see people jumping on. We're live, obviously, on Facebook and on my YouTube channel. And I have a fantastic guest for you guys today. Super excited to bring him on. This is something that I'm sort of new at and learning about, and that is the Airbnb and Airbnb arbitrage. And I'll get Karsten to explain all this kind of stuff because I won't really do it justice. But that's the topic of today's session. But if you've never been to one of my Ask Me Anythings, this is really like open forum. So just ask any questions you want. If you want to drop in the chat maybe where you're tuning in from, that'd be great, just so we can kind of see where people are. And then as always, just leave us questions there. They can be personal in nature, they can be about business, they can be about really anything. It's just an opportunity for to sort of get to know me a little bit and my guests in real time, things that are happening in my business right now for sure, and things that are happening for Karsten in his business. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Karsten in. Karsten and I met a few months ago. We were playing golf with our friend Cody Ye, and we're definitely better business people than we are golfers as a group. I think Cody was probably the best that day, but none of us were really lighting everything up. But it was great to get to meet Karsten. We had a chance to just chat a little bit after. We went for lunch after, and it was just nice to meet him and talk to him a little bit about his business. But I'm going to let him do a bit of an intro of himself. But there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. Karsten, thanks so much for joining in here today. I'm excited about chatting with you and what's going on in your business. But before we start, just for those people that don't know you, give us a bit of an intro on who you are and how you started in real estate.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. And yeah. That cracked me up there, our golf game.
Yeah. We definitely could use a little bit of assistance. So if anybody knows a good golf coach in Toronto, I think all of us, I think Cody's got one, but the rest of us could probably use one. Do you have a golf coach? No, you don't.
No, I don't. But
I don't play enough, right? I mean, I play like 4 times a year, and I feel like 3 of those times are in Arizona. So I just, it used to be something I used to love and play a lot, but I just never seem to have the time. But I do love the game. So
I was just about to say, I mean, you're heading down for a couple of months. Good chance to get a coach or something.
Yeah, there's not a lot of golf in Costa Rica, but definitely Arizona. There's hundreds, of course. I just saw Colleen's on here. Colleen knows, like, she definitely has Airbnbs down in Arizona, and in that area that I spend time in. It's in around Phoenix, Mesa. That's where my parents are. But anyway, let's go back to you and talk a little bit about yourself and how you got started, and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm definitely a real estate investor at heart. I really started scaling my portfolio 2 years ago, doing some BRRRRs, as everyone know. that term probably if you're
Mhm.
on this live, but that's the buying, renovating, refinance, rent and repeat strategy. But I kind of pivoted a little bit, kind of a year into doing a couple burrs because I realized, it's the burrs are great for like equity gains. I feel,
Yep.
um, not so much of a cash flow play if you're trying to seek kind of like that financial independence that a lot of I feel investors are seeking these days.
Mhm.
So yeah, pivoted a little bit. I had been following a couple people on Instagram who did a lot of Airbnb arbitrage. It piqued my interest. Um, so yeah, so since the beginning of the year, I've been really building up that business. And yeah, it's been a great journey so far. We have around like 20 listings now, on kind of Airbnb. So yeah, Airbnb arbitrage is basically I'm the tenant, um, of a duplex or single family home or whatever is out there for rent, so to speak,
Mhm.
and I'm then basically re-renting the duplex or the single family home on Airbnb and then trying to make a profit off the difference between the rent and what I charge on Airbnb. So high level, that's basically the strategy. Yeah,
And so you said you've got, 20 active listings now. That's crazy. And I think so. I want to go back to what you said a little bit earlier because I think that's something that I'm seeing a lot in especially in people right now. We've been talking about this a lot in our mastermind and in my coaching sessions as well. It's like additional income, right? Because I think the burst strategy and building wealth through real estate are phenomenal in terms of creating long-term wealth, right? And I
yeah,
think that's why I always say like real estate's a long-term game.
yeah.
But it you can't forget about the cash. You can't forget about living your life and being able to go out and do the things that you want to do. And I think that some people think that you can do that through buying, rental properties and using the BRRRR strategy. In my experience, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know how you feel, but in my experience, the cash flow is there, but it's usually minimal, right? It's,
Mhm.
on a duplex, let's say a duplex conversion for a $500,000. I might be making, if you truly run your numbers correctly, right? Some people are like, oh, I make $1,000 a month. I'm like, well, yeah, but what do you count? You count like mortgage, property tax, insurance, and that's about it. If you're taking in property management, repairs and maintenance, all that kind of stuff, I think maybe people are lucky to make $200-300 a month in cash flow. So then they realize they're like, oh, I want to make $10,000 a month in passive income. And I'm like, so do the math. How many properties do you need? And they're like, oh my God, I need 50 properties. Right. And they want to, do that in 5 years. So it all of a sudden becomes daunting. Right. And I think that this is why this strategy, and this is why I'm always teaching people to kind of find those things where you can actually build cash in your business. And I think that's a phenomenal thing to be able to do. So how did you get interested? I guess, what was the first project you took on, and what was that learning curve like for you to like go out, have that first conversation with somebody to say like, hey, I'd like to rent your place. I'm sure there's going to be tons of questions coming up, but did you disclose that to them? Like, what would just walk us through that process of, maybe that first deal or something that you want to talk about today?
For sure. And just to echo like what you just said, like I totally agree. Like I think, yeah, obviously a lot of people on social media, like they're over promoting or promoting kind of like the end result,
Yeah.
which is hey, which is totally cool, right? But like obviously in a increased interest rate environment, like all that cash flow that I had,
Mm-hmm.
I did variable mortgages, like it's kind of like wiped out,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of yeah, you really, if you're trying to get financial independence through like multifamily and long-term rentals, like it takes, I think, a lot more time.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
but yeah, like first arbitrage deal, like it did take me a couple months to find my first deal. I think it's that like kind of confidence of pitching the landlord on
Mm-hmm.
what value I bring.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think it's not until you're like in the thick of it and actually running the like your first Airbnb, you really understand kind of like the value that you bring to the landlord. But essentially, it's like free property management, right? That you're providing um, a landlord, and most landlords are investors, right?
Mhm.
So, how I go about it these days is I'm telling, well, Darren, as an example, if you have some units that you need rented, like, hey, Darren, like I'm an investor at heart, like I do long-term rentals on my end, but I
Mhm.
kind of have another business that's more shorter term in nature. Um, and these are kind of the benefits, right? And some of the benefits would be, especially in Ontario, where where I am at.
Yeah.
I know we have some
Yeah, we got
attendees,
folks from all
right?
over. We got
Yeah,
people from
from cities.
Alberta, yeah, Montreal, Kingston, Edmonton. That's in Alberta. Yeah, so like looks like Ontario, Quebec, and Alberta so
Yeah.
far representation.
So, but like in Ontario, being a tenant friendly province, like they're, how I'm positioning myself is, you don't really have to worry about long term tenants destroying your place or not respecting it. Like our goals are aligned in terms of when a guest checks out and the next guest comes in, they're expecting like a beautiful home to move into, right? So even if we didn't want to clean the house or didn't want to fix minor things that need to be fixed, well then our business won't do well, right? So we're kind of aligned from a landlord and tenant perspective in that, yeah, we have to upkeep the home, clean these properly every time, every week or every couple weeks. Um, so yeah, like dealing with minor repairs and maintenance, you don't have to worry about tenant calls. Um, yeah, essentially free property management. We handle the utilities. Like there's a lot of benefits, especially if you're an investor. Like investors, they want that rent check. They don't want to deal with tenants. So this kind of strategy is perfect.
Yeah. And Susan was asking, she's saying, I'm guessing this is written in the lease agreement for the original tenant. So you are the tenant, um, essentially in this scenario, and you're very open and honest with them exactly what you're going to be doing, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think, that would be a pretty big shock for somebody as a landlord if they didn't understand this and like and I would be very open to this. In fact, we have an 8-unit building that's coming online in just around the corner from me here. It's going to be complete probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and we're looking at arbitrage as a strategy because we would love to maybe look at that extra additional revenue, but at the same time, like as a owner of that building, I don't really want to have to deal with all of it. So I guess that's the next question I have is like, do you go in and furnish everything? Do you take care of all of that essentially? And is that cost go to you or does it go to the landlord? Is there a negotiation there? How does that all work?
Yeah, I think again, this is where maybe creativity comes into play. But so far, like all the deals I've done, like we handle all the furnishing. Yeah, it's out of our pocket.
Okay.
And again, that's another like maybe to some investors like a neat thing. Like your home or your investment property will essentially be like professionally staged, furnished, photographed um, for the entire lease term, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. And I think that's so do you ever get the situation where the landlord like kind of finds out what the premiums that you're making and wants to renegotiate the lease?
I mean, it hasn't come up yet.
Yeah.
It's too early maybe in the business to come across that hurdle, but
Yeah.
I feel like again, a lot of investors, like again, they're either doing a burst strategy or these are long-term holds for them. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, not everyone wants to be in the hospitality business. It's
Right.
one thing to maybe see like, oh my God, like you're bringing in this much money, but there's expenses to every business, cleaners, minor repairs and maintenance, utilities are crazy expensive these days.
Right.
Um, and then on top of that, you kind of have to build a system and process of communicating with guests, and a lot of logistical pieces to this business as well that not every investor may be down to take care of, right?
For
So
sure. And there's a question in the chat here. Like, that's a great question. Do you do everything with regards to managing the STR, or do you hire others to do some of the tasks like, booking management, or, obviously cleaning? I'm guessing you outsource. And do you predominantly focus in one market so that you can kind of build a team there? Like, do you have a full-time cleaner that just pops around to all your different properties? If you got 20, that's enough work for probably like one person almost full time. Is that what you do, or how do your systems look on the back end?
Yeah, so this year I've mostly been able to build out like Hamilton and Burlington.
Yeah.
So I've built out a team. We have, I think, 6 or 7 cleaners. Like, we don't expect them to like block off days for us, but we basically have like a chat group, and then when there's a clean, we'll announce it into the chat group, and then whoever raises their hand first will get that clean, as an example. And then we have like one handyman that's again, it's not on payroll or anything, but if a guest says, hey, the lights went out for whatever reason, then we can reach out to the handyman, and they'll go check it out. So, and then in terms of, we don't really outsource like property management, so to speak. Like, with this business, if you want the margins, you're going to have to, I think, build an in-house team. There's not enough margin there to be like, hire a legit property management company and pay them another however much percent.
Right.
And because of the active nature of this business, like a lot of people like checking in, checking out multiple properties as you scale, you'll probably do a better job doing it yourself.
Right. Yeah, and I think this is like something we're looking at in our Costa Rica properties, because once they're built, and we have, let's say, we've got 16 units in one complex and 6 to 7 in the other one. It's like, that would probably make sense to have a team of our own, property management, all that kind of stuff. Plus, we're in a foreign country, right? So I think it's a bit of a different thing, but it makes sense what you're saying with just a couple of the people you keep, on a short list for sure. They don't necessarily work for you, but if you're starting to grow your more, I'm guessing you're going to have a full-time staff.
And that's where, like for your project, it's interesting in Costa Rica. Like, we've started like, so doing duplexes and single family homes, that's kind of like one type of asset within the business. But then we've also experimented with like apartments, like, so apartment buildings, like multifamily, like a building has 31 units. We rent out like 6 units to do Airbnb. So when you have a lot of units within a building, there's economies of scale, right? As you said, like, you can probably hire like a full-time cleaner, and that obviously reduces your costs quite a bit, right? So there's a appeal there as well, and which is something we've kind of doubled down on. Looking into 2023 is we'll probably want to be, leasing up 10, 20 units within an apartment building, so that, again, logistically, it's a lot easier to manage, and there's economies of scale when it comes to that.
Lori asked this question: do most of your short-term rentals require a license, or like what are the minimum stays, or do you only go after those markets that have the short-term stays, or are you doing more mid-term rentals?
Yeah. And that's probably one of the risks of the business, right? Like, it's still a maturing industry, so to speak. Every day we hear cities or municipalities trying to place rules in place for Airbnbs. So I think it's a moving target these days. For example, like Hamilton, one of the reasons why I picked it at the beginning is because it didn't really have any rules. but again, that's risky because eventually there will be rules. So, if you're looking to get into this business, maybe it makes sense to, enter a market that already has some rules, so how to play by the rules. Um, so yeah, yeah, I think that's part of market research. You're going to have to see kind of um, whether there's licensing involved. And again, some cities, it's okay if there's licensing. It's not a bad thing per se. Like those operators that really know how to get the license and play by the rules and kind of get around the rules or whatnot, like those are the ones that make the money in the market, right?
For
So
sure. Yeah.
um,
Liz had a great question. What kind of insurance do you need to get? Or is this something that the landlord needs to take care of? And do you have then a tenant's insurance package that is specifically designed for Airbnb, or does Airbnb have an insurance product? Like, what is the insurance element that you need to deal with?
yeah, so Airbnb has actually they just upped it to $3 million in liability insurance. So that covers, I don't know, furniture breaking, or for whatever reason, if if the guest did some water damage to the home, like it covers that stuff. It was 1 million before, so they've actually upped it to 3 million, which
Mm,
is quite good. But I also have a kind of a commercial policy. It's a blanket policy um, that it's basically like a property manager's insurance
yeah.
policy that I have. So yeah, as I add more to the portfolio, it just covers it. So, but I think if you're just starting out, like maybe just the Airbnb insurance will be good enough. But again, if you're planning to scale a business and get whatever 5, 10 units or listings, then maybe that blanket commercial insurance makes the most sense.
Are you okay to share some numbers with us in terms of, like, what you're renting for and what you're able to get as a premium on average? I know it's probably different with each building, but I think it'd be interesting because this is something that I talk about with my course, because I kind of have this strategy as one of my 5 key strategies for people. I call them hustlers, right? So it's like people that don't necessarily have a lot of money, or that they don't want to use their own money to get into real estate, because you don't own the real estate in this situation. You're basically just going in, you're renting it from somebody else, and you're making a premium on that. So you can make cash flow, you can make passive income. So talk a little bit about, maybe give us a case study of something where you're renting from somebody, and then maybe what the furnishing costs were, and then maybe some of your management costs, and then what you end up charging for rent, if you're okay with sharing that.
Yeah, of course. So let's take a duplex as an example. I'm usually renting these between $3,800 and $4,000 for an up-down duplex. And there's seasonality to the business, but like if you, on average, like you take in $5,500 to $6,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
In the really good months in the summer, like I did, I think $10,000 on one duplex uh, before. So that's like, yeah, how much it costs to rent, ballpark, like estimated how much revenue. I think, yeah, to be safe, it's 5,500 is a safe number.
Yeah.
And then furnishing like a duplex. So if you talk about like a 3-bedroom house, I think like $10,000 to $12,000 should be sufficient.
Okay, so you're not making money probably for the first, like, what, quarter, I guess, if you will, if that's kind of like your, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so 6 month payback
Yeah.
is is pretty good.
Yeah.
And again, even if you make a lot of mistakes, which I did on my first one, like we went over budget on furnishing, like people didn't show up to like assemble furniture, like every mistake in the book you can think of.
Starting my life. People not showing up. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we still were able to make our money back in like 8, 9 months. Yeah. So even so even if you make a lot of mistakes, like, yeah, like, so there's very few probably strategy out there where you can, make your money back in whatever, 6, 7, 8
Yeah,
months, right?
for sure. Yeah.
Um,
Somebody had a great question too around like with the current challenges of, and sorry, I don't see the name. I just see Facebook user on my side. But given the current challenge of the Airbnb rules changing, does your contract with the owner have an out clause if a specific municipality decides you can no longer do STRs, or are you signing a 1-year lease and you're like, hey, this is the game, and there's risk reward here on both sides? Is that kind of what you're doing?
I think, good question. Like, I have really good relationships with the landlords that I um, essentially work with. Like, they understand the business. We're both investors, so they understand. Again, I haven't come across this yet, but I mean, if rules change, I'm sure there's an amicable, and really there's no like plan B to get around the rules or whatnot. I'm sure, I would come up with an amicable way to like get out of the lease.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah, most definitions for cities of a STR would be, 28 consecutive nights or 30 consecutive nights. Like, a lot of people are also jumping into midterm rentals.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of plays actually, right? Like, you can just make it like a 30-night minimum, and if you're in a decent sized city like Hamilton, there's a lot of people who need a 2 month furnished home.
Yep.
So there's always ways to pivot, I feel. Um, and again, it depends on the market, right? Like, if you're in cottage country, maybe, and they're like, yeah, no more STRs. Like, okay, will it be hard to find someone who's going to stay in Muskoka for, 30 nights? Maybe, right?
Right.
So I think it depends on the market, and that's another reason why I picked kind of like Hamilton at first, is because it is a big enough city. There is lots happening. There's several hospitals. There's several universities, colleges,
Yep.
obviously tons of businesses. So you always have demand throughout the year.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of my next questions is do you have like, we talk about Airbnb a lot because it's probably the major platform that everybody uses, but do you do things on other platforms like VRBO? And do you have any like corporate tenants where you furnish it and then, like you go to the hospital and you'll have a nurse or a doctor or somebody from out of town staying there for months at a time? Do you kind of target all markets, or do you just stick to like, I'm just going to go to Airbnb and use that one platform?
So far, I've just stuck to Airbnb, but definitely, always thinking about, for example, implementing like a channel manager software where, you can post on like booking.com and VRBO and all those. But like, interestingly enough, like, even if you're like a doctor or corporate or whatnot, like, or insurance company, like, they also go on Airbnb and find available homes, right?
Yeah.
So Airbnb is just a great like marketing tool if you just think about it that way. Like, most people, or a lot of people, go there to find what they need to find, no
Yeah.
matter what the situation is, right?
Yeah, I've been finding that too, because when I put my place up on Airbnb for the first time, like the place I'm in right now, um, because I'm going away for 3.5 months, and I put it on Facebook Marketplace, which is sort of like for our regular rentals, that's basically the best spot that I'm finding these days. But I wasn't getting a lot of traction because Facebook Marketplace doesn't allow me to select something that says a unit is furnished or not furnished. I
Mm.
can put it in the title or the description, but that's about it. So then I put it up on Airbnb, and I got a couple of hits right away. And I didn't realize, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, there is like Airbnb discounts it, because it's like if you don't have any track record of having a rental, then they want to provide like a first time or second time discount. And I get it, because they probably want somebody to review it so that you have some more eyes on it. But it was still like somebody snapped it up pretty quickly for the first 6 weeks, and then I've still got February and March available as of right now. But yeah, I think that is kind of the place where people are going now. If they want to find short-term rentals, they're just like, I'm not going to go to Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to go to Airbnb, or I'm going to go to VRBO, because they're specializing in exactly that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that makes sense. That's why you're staying in that lane.
Yeah.
Is that a normal thing like that? Sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, like, both parties get like protection too, right? When they go through Airbnb, like you as a host, you get $3 million of protection.
Right.
Yeah, there's guardrails there, and then as a person booking, again, you get protected as well, because well, you can give 1-star reviews if you don't like the place. Like there's a lot of ways, like both sides are protected, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point too. Like you say, there's protection on both sides, and there's assurances there. The Airbnb is going to take care of you if you had a bad experience on either side. They're going to step in and take care of that. I'm going to go to a couple other questions here in the chat. I saw one earlier. Just got to scroll back up here. Okay. Sure. Where is it? Okay. Shraddha. Hey, Shraddha. She was asking, do you offer more than market rent? Because she has a few rental arbitrage as well, and this is something that she's faced.
No, I don't. Like if the person isn't, if the landlord isn't understanding the value you're bringing, then there's no point, right? Like, yeah, and that's why it took me a couple months to like really get my first deal, because I was just regurgitating what I saw on social media as to the value I could bring. Right. But again, like you as a person renting the home, you're bringing like so much value. Like you're making sure this home that they have stays intact in the condition that you are moving into. Yeah. Right. You're taking care of minor repairs and maintenance. No tenant calls, unless a roof leaks or any like CapEx stuff. You would obviously call the landlord, but for the most part, there's no minor repairs, maintenance. You're taking care of the utilities. You're furnishing the home, like professional photography. Like the list goes on and on in terms of benefits, right? Yeah. So yeah, I've had that objection a lot of times. Oh, okay, you're going to do this, so like I want like $500 more a month. Right. Then no, like you don't understand like kind of the value I'm bringing to you. Like you, like the person, the landlord always wanted a long-term tenant. That's why they had it on Facebook Marketplace. And so what's changed? What, like, just because you want, I guess, some of the profit, right? Like, yeah, they don't understand like all the costs, all the shit you also have to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of it. Yeah,
there's a lot of it. Exactly. So,
and is that where you go to source most of your deals, is going on to Facebook and just finding, like, are you just looking for motivated people, or are you looking in specific areas of like, these are the kinds of properties that do really well? Like, how do you target your potential renters?
Yeah, I'd pick a market, and then look for rental listings. I hear it's actually a good time now. I've been hearing.
Really? I would have thought it would have been the opposite, because it's so competitive right now. Like, with
I've heard whisperings that like there's so much rental supply out there right now. At least I've heard, like I've seen on social media, like in Niagara, like there's so many listings. So maybe it's a good time to find a good rent. But yeah, going back to your question, like renovated, you definitely want something renovated. Yeah, and I use Facebook. I use Kijiji. Yeah. At least in Ontario, I think those are the main ones people use. So yeah, definitely look for like renovated properties. And so the tricky part sometimes here also is that a, a lot of people will list like the upper unit and maybe the basement unit is still occupied. So
Mhm.
that was another trick for me. Like I had to find someone who's just renovated a duplex so that I can like rent both units.
Mm.
Um, so
Have
it's
you
not
found it doesn't work very well if it's Airbnb in one unit and something else in another, long-term
exactly.
rental?
You kind of want to control the
Right.
property if possible. So yeah, sometimes mixing long term and short term isn't the best. Um, yeah, so for example, in Barrie, we have a couple. What's unique there is, I think Barrie several years ago allowed garden suites and coach houses to be built.
Yeah.
So yeah, even though we don't have control of the entire property, which is the duplex in the main house and then the coach house, but the coach house is completely separate. So we actually rented a couple coach houses in Barrie, which has been doing pretty well.
Nice. Yeah, I live in a laneway suite, and so I think it's
Yeah,
appealing because we have the triplex there that I built, and then there's the laneway suite that if I could want to rent it separately, I can, and it doesn't affect anybody else really. So I imagine those are ideal situations for STRs. Somebody was asking the question like, is there a certain number of bedrooms or bathrooms that is ideal for rentals on Airbnb, or is it simply depending on the market? That's going to dictate what happens.
yeah, I'd say that's probably depending on the market, right? Um, Maybe good to have a wide variety, like
Mhm.
maybe one bedroom, so that's like a single person in town for work. Um, we have two-bedroom units. We have three. Yeah, good to get a mix. I mean, it depends on the market, but three bedrooms, you're probably getting more families. Two bedrooms, maybe couples, or
Yeah.
maybe a family that's just starting out. So it depends. Yeah.
Do you find that it's that with the larger units, maybe like the three bedrooms and stuff, there's a bigger profit margin there because if there were a three bedroom place in a hotel, I think that's where I always make that comparison of like if somebody's going into a hotel and they've got to rent two hotel rooms or whatever, they can get an Airbnb for significantly less. Do you feel like you can charge more for those larger units?
Uh,
In
Potentially,
comparison, I
your
guess.
your rent's higher as well. So I think it's all proportional.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And that's where, yeah, getting control of like an entire home is appealing, right?
Yeah, for
Then you
sure.
have multiple options.
Yeah. There's lots of questions in the chat just about general real estate stuff. And I'm going to get back to those in a second here, but I want to just kind of tie up this um, Airbnb arbitrage stuff. Um, so I think we covered the insurance. There's another question. Do you like more than 1 year lease up front? Or do you just sign a one year lease off the bat?
Yeah, I think in on in Ontario again, like when you become a tenant, um, like the landlord can't really kick you out. So
Yeah.
there's no point really doing a year or a lease that's longer than a year. So I
Mhm.
think it depends on the province, the landlord tenant board rules. Now again, like I'm predominantly dealing with investors, right? So
Right.
I mean, if at the end of the year, like the landlord for whatever reason is like, hey, this for whatever reason this isn't working out or whatnot, again, we would find a way to end it amicably. But technically speaking, if you go by the landlord tenant board, like the landlord, if you really don't want to leave, maybe the landlord needs to give you some cash for keys.
It's like, yeah, shoes on the other foot now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have class A luxury Airbnbs in Hamilton, or is it mostly like class B and C?
Yeah, it's mostly like your run of the mill like Airbnbs. Like, yeah, I mean that's comes down to market research as well. Like, is there Is there a market for luxury Airbnbs in Hamilton? Like, I don't know. Like, that's the kind of research you need to do. But, I definitely wouldn't recommend doing like a luxury kind of property if it's your first one. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, you kind of want to build your run of the mill Airbnb, like whatever, $150, $200 a night type of product, build that foundation cash flow and before you go into some higher end stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
makes
because
sense.
those are riskier, higher rent, more higher end furnishings that you're going to have to do. So the risk is going to be a lot higher.
For sure. Are there any foreign markets? David is asking, are there any foreign markets that you are particularly looking at or that you like or that you've heard are doing well?
Yeah, like actually I started scaling my, I guess, portfolio and my own company, so to speak, the first like 6, 7 months. And I actually partnered with another um, uh, Airbnb arbitrager. His name's Aaron Bay. Maybe a lot of you guys know him, but we actually kind of formed a new company focused on US. So we've just started to launch in the US. And again, we're focused on the kind of like the apartment model in the US. So we're renting like 10, 15, 20 units within an apartment building, furnishing them. So, I think the US is a great market. Obviously, it's massive.
Hmm.
There's a ton of people doing what we do in the US, but the market's
Yeah.
big enough so that, you can still be profitable in the US. Um, yeah, we've looked at Dubai as well. So
Really?
that's probably more of a aspirational thing that yeah. So I mean, we plan to grow this out into a global company.
Yeah, well, if you want to come to Costa Rica and manage my stuff, you're more than welcome to. Or if you're looking to expand to Toronto, I'll give you my 8 unit building right now. We're just about to lease it all up. You can you can have it. I can just be like,
Okay. Yeah.
perfect. Here you go. No, I mean, I'm like, it's a very interesting thing, and I think like our building would fit that mold. Brand new, like newly renovated, right? It's two bedroom, 2 bathroom, all the units. We got 7 car parking. We're in a great neighborhood, close to transit. But that was our concern. We were like, well, do we take like 2 of the units and do them on Airbnb? But now that you're talking about this, I'm like, no, that would be, and although they could be like maybe on the main floor or on the top floor, I guess that's, if you were going to mix units, and maybe when you do this in multifamily buildings, where do you decide to put these units? Is it better to have them like on the top floor, or is it better to have them on the main floor? Or do you find that there is an actual ideal location in a multifamily building?
Yeah. I mean, that's some of the hurdles we run into, like in the US, like some landlords, um, and these are like big institutional, like property management companies or developers. Like they have been burned before by just Airbnb people not taking care of the building or not
Mhm.
respecting it. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the logical thing would be, if you don't want to do the entire building short term, you'd have one floor dedicated to short term and then one floor dedicated to, long term rentals. I think that probably makes the most sense. So yeah. So yeah, even when we're negotiating leases in the US, like we try and get these units like in a together versus all spread out um, around the building.
Makes sense. Um, So somebody was asking about like a specific insurance company. Are you okay to do? Oh, he said it was Dave saying, "Who do you use for commercial insurance?" Are you okay to share that?
April, the company, like the company who supplied the insurance policy is April. Um, but I have a broker. I have an insurance broker. His name's Brent McLaughlin. He helped me find it. So
Nice.
DM,
Um,
happy to share.
Yeah, for sure. What's your experience with the landlord and tenant board? Like, because so one of our mastermind members had a situation where I don't know the full details of it. Maybe you'll maybe able to fill in the blanks for me. Um, she had rented it out, I think, on Airbnb. Somebody had gone in and stayed for maybe a couple weeks or a month. It was in Hamilton, actually. And then maybe they wanted to extend, but she had not exactly collected the payment for the extension or something like that. And then they just basically stayed, and she tried to get them out, because I think this is why a lot of people want to do Airbnb, because they're like, oh, well, this is easy. They don't have to follow the landlord and tenant rules and all that kind of stuff. So they went to remove the person basically who was like trespassing at that point. And the
Yeah.
police said, no, this is a landlord and tenant issue now, because these people are in your building, and they had to kind of follow the protocol. It was kind of a crazy story, because then they had to file, with the landlord and tenant board. So where have you had any experience with this, and where does the landlord tenant board sort of take over, and where does this short-term rental markets play in this space? Like what's going on here?
Yeah, that's interesting. Again,
Mhm.
I haven't personally come across this. Hopefully, I don't have to. Like, I literally have several guests right now that are staying in these Airbnbs for longer than 30 nights.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I I've had to call the I've had to call the cops once before, but again, that wasn't like a long term stay. Um, but again, I feel like if you can show the police like, hey, they booked on Airbnb, this was the start, this was the end, like they need to check out according to the reservation. Like
Mhm.
I don't see that being a big issue. And
Yeah, I
I
don't
would
know. I don't know what the situation was, but I know that, like, it was really problematic, and it was a sad story actually. What ended up happening was, eventually the person just abandoned the place and had locked their dog in the bathroom, and the dog was like in there for like 3 or 4 days without any food. And
oh my
it was all
god.
like, the dog was okay in the end, which I'm an animal lover, so I was just like, oh, I don't know why that broke my heart more than anything else. But there was a whole bunch of damage and everything like that. But yeah, it sort of like got into that landlord tenant area. So I think, people just need to be aware that, of all of the rules and regulations. And I know that, you're an investor, you've done a ton of education. You continue to work on, your knowledge and things like that. So for those people that are looking to get into different strategies, I would always suggest, making sure you understand the nuances of everything, the rules and regulations of what falls into STRs, what is, the landlord and tenant, like all of that different stuff. So, people get excited about getting into real estate investing, kind of diving in head first, and maybe not knowing all of the rules and all of the things that are at play. So I would always just suggest, for those of you that are relatively new to real estate investing, get some sort of education. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars, but there's lots of great services out there. To make sure that you understand things that you need to know as an investor.
Yeah.
So that's my pitch, and I'll talk about my Black Friday sale at the end of the call today. um, do you allow smoking or pets?
Smoking, no. Um, Pets, depending. Yeah. If it's large, if it's a big dogs, probably not.
Yeah.
So it depends. And it depends, does this person have reviews? How long are
Mhm.
they looking for? Um, so yeah, sometimes it's a gut feel. It's like, okay, I think you're a good person, like you'll be fine. So yeah, it depends. And then smoking, yeah, definitely no, but that could be a cash grab as well. Um,
Right.
if people do, I mean, there's house rules around like, hey, you're going to be charged $500 if you smoke. So talk about like cash flow off smoking.
Right.
Right into,
Yeah.
um,
Never thought about it that way. You can't do that in a regular situation, but I guess if those are
nope,
your house rules in Airbnb and they break them, right? There's consequences, right?
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like just yeah, if you're trying to get into business and trying to pitch landlords and like just think about the benefits to the landlords too, right? Like if someone punched the hole, if a long-term tenant punched the hole through the wall, good luck getting them to fix that, right?
Yeah.
But if a landlord works with someone like myself, they wouldn't even have to ask. Like, we would have to fix it because, again, that next guest coming in expects to not see a hole in the wall.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to have an impact on your business if you don't, because
Exactly.
they're going to review you, right? Not you're
Exactly.
the person that's the front and center in terms of this relationship. So that makes a lot of sense. And that's
And then
another
the cherry on top is Airbnb pays for that damage.
right. Nice. Yeah, like there's a lot of advantages, I think, like you say, when you stack them up, and I think that's in positioning that with your potential owners of your buildings, your investors, really on the other side of it. It's like it's a pretty easy sell in terms of the benefits, having that guaranteed rent, right, and not having to worry about it, and you managing it. And I like the idea of taking over the whole building. That makes a lot of sense why you do that, because that was my main thing, is like, how do you have one unit that's dedicated and others that are not? But if you're simply looking for buildings that are kind of newly renovated and essentially, you get the whole building, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we should chat.
I'm serious. Yeah. Yeah, Lori was making a point. Service animals cannot be refused. That makes sense, But it's funny. I'm a dog owner too, right? And so I'm a dog owner and I'm a landlord, and I get it. I get this whole thing of like people don't want to have pets, but like I'm a really responsible dog owner. But how do
Yeah,
you tell people that? It's like, other than being like, "Oh, my dog's amazing and she never makes any noise," and then I'm like, I hear it all the time. I'm like, yeah, and I
I guess
get it.
that.
I'm like,
Yeah,
there are some great animal owners out there. The thing is, you're just kind of rolling the dice on
yeah,
who's, you just don't know. So I think it is a thing where if somebody has reviews, and obviously that's another nice thing. We don't get reviews off our tenants. I mean, we can pull all of their history and we can talk to everybody, but you can't get, you don't get an actual review on that side. So it's very nice. Yeah.
yeah, and like, I mean, we've probably all experienced it if you've been in the game long enough. Like, the long-term tenant starts off really good, and then like 6 months in, maybe they lose a job, maybe something personal happens, and then it goes downhill like
Mm,
in a snap of a finger, right?
yeah.
Like, so but then again, I have long-term rentals, so I'm not like,
Yeah.
you know just doing all short-term. Like, I mean, depends on your situation and whatnot. Both have its pros and cons.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, definitely when you're, I think, doing like long-term rentals, like, depending on how much you've scaled, like, yes, it's a business, and yes, you should like treat it like a business in terms of like your bookkeeping and whatnot. Like, um, but like, I categorize that more as like I'm an investor, right?
Mhm.
Versus this business is like, you're not really, and you're not really investing in a business. Like, you're running a business. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like, I think, the mentality you'd want to go in with. Yeah, like you're legit starting like an active business, and it's a 24/7 business, right?
For sure. Absolutely. Let's switch gears a little bit, Carson, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
There was a couple of questions, like not necessarily related to Airbnb, that I wanted to get to. The question that comes up, I think, all the time. I'm just going to scroll back up here to the top, because it's a common question for a lot of investors. What are you doing in terms of buying properties? Are you buying them personally? Are you in a corporate setting now? Like, what's your corporate structure look like?
It's gotten a lot more complicated in the past like 6 months, to be honest, because we've done some we've done some investments in the US.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, our arbitrage, Airbnb arbitrage, like, I'm expanding into the US. So that involves some like LP, GP type of structure so that we avoid like double tax, as an example.
Yeah.
Um, so to answer that question, yeah, we have a holdco up top. We have another company that holds our long-term rental properties. And then the whole co also owns this active arbitrage business. So yeah, I think that's how we have it like structured right now.
Yeah.
What was the first part of the question?
Just like do you buy properties? Do you own them in your personal name, or do you
Oh,
have corporate?
we've had to. I think, and anytime we've asked for it to be in the corp, like either the interest rate's higher or it's just hard to get financing for whatever reason. So we've actually done like the bare trust agreement type
Yep.
of. Um, Again, not legal advice, so talk to a
Yeah.
lawyer.
Not a
But
lawyer, not an accountant. Yeah.
that's what we've done for like our so-called bigger like multifamily stuff.
Yeah.
We've bought it in the personal name to get financing, and then put a bare trust agreement in place so that like the corp kind of owns it from my
Yeah.
understanding.
And for people that aren't familiar with that, like how it works, I'll explain it just very quickly. But you can buy a property in your personal name, and you can set up a corporation in the background, and then you can have your accountant and would drop what's called a bare trust agreement. And the bare trust agreement basically says to in Canada, it says to the CRA that yes, this property is being held in my personal name, but it's actually for the benefit of my corporation, right? So the corporation would collect all the income, file all the income tax, everything like that. So you get the benefit of having a corporate structure, but you technically own the property. It's held title in the personal name, so you get better interest rates on your financing and better, situation, usually with loan to value and things like that. So that's what Carson's referring to, for those of you that aren't familiar with that. So that is a one way definitely to kind of like get around that situation where you get the best of both worlds. Talk about the market right now. Like, what are you seeing out there? And Antoine was saying, the market that I'm looking at is going slowly down in pricing with interest rates going up. I'm so confused on whether I should wait for prices to drop or buy before rates go up. So I'd love to get your opinion on, kind of where you think the state of the market is and what you're looking at doing right now. Are you buying? Are you waiting? Are you kind of seeing what's going to happen? Where are you at?
Well, right now I think I'm just super kind of laser focused on like growing the arbitrage business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do have a project in Hamilton right now that I'm working on, like renovating it. Um, but I'm not like actively seeking purchases right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because like my strategy's changed a little bit, right? Like again, if a great deal came across my desk and it's kind of like a burr and we can, you know, get some good equity gains, like I'm definitely open to looking at it. I think just run the numbers, right? Like if you're just run the numbers, like the numbers never lie. How much are you buying it for? How much renos are you going to need to put in? What's the after repair value once all the renos are done?
Yeah.
And once you put in your mortgage and your property tax, all the repairs and maintenance, like you deduct all those expenses. If it's cash flowing or close to cash flowing,
Yeah.
um, then why not pull the trigger?
I had a couple mentors when I first started. They were like, if you're waiting for the bottom of the market, you're probably going to miss it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that if like you say, if your numbers make sense, I do think we're still going to see a little bit more of a downturn, just because I think they're going to raise interest rates at least one more time, if not two more times, before they probably stabilize them. So that's going to send a few more people into the panic mode, I think, and you're going to see more properties coming on the market. So if to your point, if you can buy it right now and it cash flows, that's a great place, because I think the market, is going to be, maybe dropping a little bit more. But I do think that we're going to, go into a bit of a recession, and they're going to drop interest rates again. So you're going to need to wait about a year or two, right, until things start to drop again before you want to like refinance and pull out capital. But I think there's some great opportunities on the market right now. So if you know how to capitalize on this time, there's definitely going to be some fantastic, properties on the market that people are like in a situation where they have to sell,
Yeah.
So I would absolutely agree with that.
And probably like, besides, whether to buy or not, like I would just say, like, make sure you're capitalized too, right? Like
For sure.
if you have a lot of cash in hand, like it's actually a really good thing to have in 2023, because you can
Absolutely.
sell opportunities. So yeah,
Yeah.
deals are
Yeah, I agree. I think there's opportunity here right now in the market, and I just dropped something into the chat for everybody. For those of you that aren't familiar with my real estate investing academy, I don't talk about my products a lot on my social media stuff, but I know people are interested in learning more about these kinds of things. I do have a Black Friday sale. It's on until Monday, so I'll drop you a coupon code in the chat as well. So this is for $500 off my course. My course is basically, I break them down, Carson, you'll get it. I break them down into kind of like three main categories: people who have time, but they don't necessarily have a lot of money. So Airbnb arbitrage is one of those strategies in that situation. Then there's folks who have money who don't necessarily have a lot of time. Those are kind of the people like that are my lenders, that are going to be getting into development and doing all that kind of stuff, but on a passive perspective. And then there's the folks that have both time and money, and that's a nice place to be. Those are people that are going to go out and flip properties and do BRRRRs and things like that. So what I've done for Black Fridays, I've bundled all of that together, as well as 12 weeks of group coaching. So for people that are interested, you can click the link there, and you can use that promo code. That'll give you $1,495 for 12 weeks of coaching and all my online courses and stuff. So yeah, that's available to anybody that's interested. And I've also got a new development course out. Just go to my website if you're interested in that. That's a big one. I'm super excited about that, teaching people all about development and what's possible in that space. Teaching how to buy and build, what I'm doing right now, which is like 31 unit building. We've got 4 8-unit buildings on the go. So there's a whole course dedicated to that that's starting in the spring. So yeah, just a little pitch for me and everything that's going on in my life. Carson, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I've learned a lot today, and that's super, it's very rare. I think that there's a strategy that I don't necessarily know or haven't heard of before, but Airbnb arbitrage, I feel like it's kind of like what the old sandwich lease option was, right? I think that more people were teaching that back in the day, and this is kind of the new form of it. So I love that, you're just right at the forefront of it. You understand it all. You've been doing it consistently and doing it very well. So I want to give you the opportunity for people to reach out to you if they have questions or if they want to get involved with anything you're doing. Do you want to leave your information in the chat, or would you rather just somebody DMs you on Insta or Facebook, or what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm more than happy to. How do I work? Oh, I can private chat. Oh, okay. So easiest way to actually, connect is just on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's a private chat.
That's okay. I'll drop it into the chat for you.
First name, last name, all one word. I think, yeah, I'm on Instagram.
Yeah, go give Carson a follow on Instagram and follow everything he's doing. And yes.
Have more questions, yeah, DM me. Happy to help where I can. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun. My first AMA.
Well, you were great, man. You have such a ton of knowledge, that you can impart on people, which is so nice to have. And I appreciate you sharing and being so open with everything. It's really nice to just talk about numbers and talk about specifics and give out contacts and things like that. So I really appreciate that. It's kind of what we call the abundance mindset, and it's people that I try to bring on and feature. I want them to have that, and you're definitely one of those people. So I appreciate that. I just saw Lori, you've been trying to get in contact with me. Just shoot me an email, Lori, info@darrenvoros.com, and we'll definitely set something up for you. All right. Thanks everybody for joining in. I really appreciate it. Carson, thanks so much for your time today. And I will see you guys all in a couple weeks. The next Ask Me Anything session is a couple weeks out. I believe it's December 9th. It's already on my YouTube channel and the Facebook page. So check it out. And I'll see you guys. It'll be our last session before the Christmas break, and then we'll pick it back up in the new year. So thanks again, Carson. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend, and we'll talk to y'all soon.